finished the one, it was literally 100% committed.
We get it? Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's that time. I'd like to welcome everybody to the mid-monthly or late monthly work session, Thursday, June 23rd work session. It's great to have some smiling faces in the crowd. We don't always have that. Welcome, everybody. Yeah. Having said that, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Pillion? Here. Ms. Quetch? Here. And Mayor Webb?
Here. All right, council. At this time, I am myself going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, if that's okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for allowing me to do that. That brings us to the approval of the agenda. Council, if you don't have any changes to the agenda, I'd entertain a motion to approve it as it is.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch? Aye. And Mayor Webb?
Aye. That brings us to public comments, and Kim, I understood we did not have public comments
Correct.
sign up
Signed
or
up.
public hearing, okay? So we can zip right through that stuff. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we do have public hearing. Didn't have anybody sign up, but we do have number one, a proposed budget amendment. Steve would have got me had I forgot him. Proposed budget amendment for fiscal year July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Mr. Trotter.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, council members. The budget amendment for 2022 was necessary for a couple of reasons, one of which was the bond revenue that had been secured some years ago. All of that money that we drew down was recognized as revenue in the previous fiscal year, even though the construction costs and all were this fiscal year. And so since it had already been recognized as revenue, we're actually pulling that money. All that revenue last year fell to the bottom line, if you will, in the general fund, okay? And so this year we needed to use that money out of the general fund and then transfer it as an expense over to the capital projects fund to complete the Meadows as well as the Fields Penthouse. So that was the primary purpose of the amendment, was to recognize that as an additional expense and the use of general funds, okay? The other thing was that Tanya Triplett did such a fantastic job the previous year with the DHCD grant on the meals grant. They were very pleased with how well that program worked, and Tanya was able to secure an additional $200,000 grant, which that entire process has now been completed. There's about $2,500 still outstanding that's due to the town. But the grant program itself is completed, and it was, again, very, very successful. We had a preliminary compliance audit last week. But anyway, those are the primary motivators for this budget amendment. There was no, this amendment also shows, if you recall, 2 years ago, I guess, there was the establishment of the VDOT Street Maintenance Fund, which was a separate fund from the general fund. It was primarily put together because some of the department heads thought it would be easier to track. As it turned out, it was administratively burdensome, shall we say. And so we've collapsed that street maintenance fund back into the general fund, which is where it used to be years ago. And so that revenue from VDOT is now reflected in the general fund as opposed to being reflected in another street maintenance fund. So this amendment, again, collapses that. There were no amendments necessary for the ARPA fund, which the council had amended earlier in the fiscal year when we received that money last year. We're still on track to expend the money as the council had directed. We haven't expended it all, but we still don't, since we haven't, we don't need to make any type of an amendment to that fund. The sewer fund as well, there were no additional extraordinary revenues or expenses in that, so we're still on track with the original budget for sewer. So that's the purpose of the amendment. Any questions on that?
Yeah, council, any questions for Steve? So basically, Steve, what you're telling me is we didn't spend any money that wasn't previously planned on being spent. It's just kind of accounted
It's
for. what we-
accounting where we're pulling the money from,
Yeah.
exactly. The
Just to
overall
clarify.
amendment is $7,048,056. And the revenue side, again, that's pulling from the general fund, that's moving the VDOT revenue from one fund to the other. And then we took the opportunity, since it was late in the fiscal year, and we were getting so close to the end, Amanda and I took the opportunity, Amanda Hill, not Miss Fillion, took the opportunity to do a line-by-line view of where we currently were at the end of May with anticipated June revenue, so that we could just kind of sync up the entire budget.
So you guys did our audit for us, so we don't have to pay for another one, right?
Well, internal preliminary audit, I'll say.
Just joking. All right, council, any questions? Steve always does such a great job of explaining. It's pretty easy to understand, even for me. So with that being said, this is a public hearing. It's first reading, right?
We just need to
Just-
open it for public hearing.
Just opening it for just the one time, okay, all right, so, since it's a public hearing, I'll open that for the public. If anybody would like to come and make comments or criticize us, they certainly are welcome to do so. Second call. If nobody wants to come up, then I'll close the public hearing, and we'll take that up later, right, Ken? All right, excellent. That's what I like to keep you around for, Ken, keep you straight. We do have a resolution.
Justify my existence.
Come on. Got to bring you into conversation. We do have a resolution today for the application of industrial revitalization funds for the United Way of Southwest Virginia. Mayan? Oh, she's here already. Good.
I am.
Yeah.
We did a quick switch. All right, so I'm just going to give a little background for anyone who might be listening. But in 2021, last year, we learned about a grant for revitalization. It was for shopping centers, industrial buildings, dilapidated structures. And we contacted a few people, put out some feelers, didn't really hear back from anyone. And then we were contacted by the United Way of Southwest Virginia, and they said, well, actually, we've been, looking at locations, and we think this would be a great grant for us to apply for. Right now, what's really interesting about it is that the grant has a lot more funds because of ARPA funding that went through the state. They also got a chunk of money. So it used to be that you could apply, I think, for like $650,000. Now you can apply for up to $5 million. So they would like to apply for $5 million. The project is basically just a brief summary, and anyone else can speak on it after I give this presentation. But they're looking for a regional headquarters for the United Way. It'll be a distribution center for childcare supplies and infrastructure, so like a large warehousing facility where they would be distributing products to other childcare facilities. An actual childcare facility, training center for expanding childcare facilities in the region, and then a regional youth workforce development facility. So they're looking for a fairly significant location, and we're all aware that childcare became a real critical piece post-COVID, and so they're looking to fill that gap. So a couple of the questions that was asked was, what would the town's role be in this? And we had a meeting with us and DHCD and asked what would be our involvement, because we don't have a lot of staff available to do contract management for grants. And they said that if they do win the money, at that point, they can actually, DHCD can have a direct contract with the United Way. So we become a little less involved than normal contract management. And so we wouldn't act as the fiscal agent, we wouldn't act as a day-to-day manager of the grant, and we would not have to provide a monetary match. So this memorandum, obviously an MOU would probably be established with them for some amount of contractual services, but again, this is not meant to, put additional labor on the current staff. So staff is asking that town council adopt this resolution. It's a sample resolution that they would need to apply for the grant. And I think their representative is here, and they have some additional comments if you're willing to hear them.
Sure, come on up.
Brendan McSheehy, and honored to serve as the chair of the United Way Board, but a very poor substitute for Travis Dayton, who is in Richmond today. So, from the board's and my personal understanding, in order to improve the quality of child care throughout the region, there needs to be a hub and a spoke model. And we have approached it in a fairly fragmented fashion. There are over 200 child care providers that the United Way looks after, administers grant funds, assures competency, and goes from the very small to a couple of the reasonably large size. As we go forward in the future, getting economies of scale to serve more children, a lot of the cost is related to backroom, to things like supplies, and just think of today's labor market in general. It's very hard to get people to serve, and childcare is not the highest paying profession. So with that, again, this is a grand plan. $5 million is not going to do it, but it's putting a building together from a number of bricks, and it'll certainly get us a lot further down the road and give us a credible start. So thank you very much for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer hopefully the not too difficult question.
Is there a time frame on this, a deadline or a time goal that you're looking towards?
We would like to begin repurposing perhaps by the end of the year.
A structure here in town?
Yes.
Yes.
Council, any questions? Well, I think it sounds like a great plan. We're happy to help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody to the community.
Sure. So council, I assume we need to adopt a resolution to give them the authority, okay? I would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution. Motion by Mr. Anderson, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Pillion. Council, any discussion? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch? Aye. And Mayor Webb?
Aye. Thank you all so much, appreciate it. It's exciting. That brings us to first readings of ordinances. We do have an ordinance, as we alluded to earlier, of the Council for the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, proposing an amended budget and to make appropriation for that amendment of current expenses and revenues for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Trotman, anything else to add? Or?
I have nothing to add, but I can entertain any questions you may have.
Okay. Council, I know it's been all of 3 minutes, but what questions have we thought of for Mr. Trotman, huh? All right. Now, Cam, procedurally, do we need to have a second reading, or can we dispel with the second reading, or?
I think it'd be appropriate to waive the second reading.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Council, if we're going to make that motion, I think personally it would be wise to waive that second reading and just go ahead and adopt it. Anyone entertain that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens to adopt the ordinance as stated and waive the second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch? Aye. And Mayor Webb?
Aye. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We do have a consideration of a bid, and this is the moment Mike's been waiting for. He didn't get in quite as quickly. I saw that one. It's a consideration of a bid for Green Spring Road culvert rehabilitation. Mike.
Mr. Mayor, council members, on May 23rd, we submitted an advertisement for Green Spring Road culvert rehabilitation to repair a damaged culvert. On June the 9th, we opened the sealed bids. There were 3 bidders. 2 of those bidders were responsible bidders, and the low bid was $105,000. And I come to you asking for you to accept the bid for those repairs. After AMT had done their bid analysis, which should be in your packet, the staff recommends that we move forward with this rehabilitation work on Green Spring Road.
Okay. Council, what questions do we have for Mike? I know that's pretty cut and dry. And just so the public knows, who, did you say who was the bidder?
The low bidder is Anglers LLC.
Anglers LLC.
Yes.
Have we worked with them before?
We have not worked with them before, but they do quite a bit of work with VDOT on their culvert repairs along the interstate. But I mean, our consultant did check them out, checked all the bids, did all the background research, and they are the low bidder, and that is our recommendation also.
And once again, what's the time frame on all that? Start to finish?
ASAP.
Yes, ASAP. ASAP.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike, is that VDOT eligible?
Yes, yes, this is urban maintenance eligible.
Excellent. Was that pretty, is that kind of what you thought the bids would come back? I mean,
No. I mean, our engineer's estimate was, you know, we take into consideration inflation, all the economic factors.
Sure, sure.
Material, supply chain, so, I mean, it's probably in the ballpark, but it's not exactly what we had anticipated.
So we ended up okay then?
In a good way.
Good.
yes.
In a good way.
Good. Fantastic, fantastic. That's, we always like good news.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, it's,
That's it.
yes.
That's it. All right. Well, I know, council, we've been working diligently. As I've said many, many times, we're a council of action. And we'd like to get this done as quickly as possible. So I would entertain a motion to award that bid and allow them to do that as quickly as we can.
Go ahead. No, you said first. I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All right, good, excellent. See, I told you, we really jumped on that one quickly. So I've got a motion by Ms. Pillion to award that bid to Anglers LLC for $105,000. A second by Vice Mayor Quetch. So Mike, if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and ask him to call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Billion? Ms. Quetch? And Mayor Wood?
Aye. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your hard work. We don't have any new business that I'm aware of. We do have some old business. Financial presentation of the community development fee schedule to be approved by the town manager from Ms. Mayanna Russ.
Okay, so I think this is my third time in front of y'all, so you're probably pretty familiar with it, but basically I came to you in the beginning and said the way that we've structured our fees is significantly lower than anyone in our region structuring their fees. Then I came to you and presented the different types of fees that we take and then the rates in the area, and you said, you know, basically come back with something that's in between. We don't want to be the most expensive in the area, we don't want to be where we were at the least expensive. So we brought that back to you, and what we've basically presented is for all building department fees, there'll be a baseline fee of $25, and then we'll take $5 per $1,000 in value. So, you know, you can quickly see where there's a pretty easy calculation, how much a permit would cost. We did continue with a maximum fee of $35,000. In talking with Rick, our building official, it didn't seem like if, you know, you got an $8 million hotel or a $35 million building or project, that it really would justify taking more than $35,000, even if it was stretched out over a few years. So we put that maximum fee on. It actually, I think, is also a benefit. Our town manager and I are discussing how it's a benefit for people who come in, and we can say, look, we're actually giving you very reasonable fees where you might not get that in other places that you're looking to develop. So, so we are changing the way that the building department takes fees. The engineering department was not taking a lot of fees for a lot of the different work that they do, like road closures. And I mean, in fact, I had a discussion with one of our local businesses that said, why do we have to pay when we close down the street for an event, but a construction company doesn't have to pay when they close down the street for construction work? And I said, don't worry, they will shortly. So it's kind of creating a little more equity, and you know, I think that's always a good place for us to be, where one is not paying more than somebody else for the same service that the town is supplying. So, so that's that. And then in the planning department, again, we upped the fees. Clearly, it won't cover all the costs of all of the meetings, but we did put some a little bit higher than our base fees, which were like $25 and $50. So So it's a step forward. It won't cover everything, but it at least gets us going in the right direction. So based on there was a resolution that was adopted June 7th, 2021, and in that resolution, it actually authorizes the town manager to sign final versions of a fee schedule. So I'm mainly bringing it back because you all will get the calls, even if we have a signature from the town manager. So I don't really need a motion as much as if there were any questions, I could answer them.
I mean, I don't even know that we'll get a lot of calls. You know, it's pretty standard to charge fees, and if we're in the middle, I don't think it's really that big of a change.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in my opinion, it seems to be a fair change, especially considering the inflation across the board everywhere. So council, do we have any specific questions about any?
Obviously, you've done your research, so you know what other localities are charging for fees. So if somebody complains, you can say, we're still below these fees.
Absolutely.
So I think that's
And remember, we started this process years ago when Mr. Morani came and we were looking into what fees were charged and what weren't charged. And I think the effort of me, certainly, in this council has been to treat everybody the same. And so I think that we're slowly but surely getting to that level where we've got our handle on everything and getting everything across the board. So I think at the time, like Mahana said, you passed a resolution that said council doesn't need to set all these fees. If you recall, in the old budgets, the budget ordinance itself had all of the fees and charges and all that stuff in the budget itself. And that isn't required by the statute, and we decided that we didn't need to do that in the budget ordinance, and that was probably more proper for management to do, and so that's how we got to where we are.
Sure. Yeah, certainly.
I've only been here for, a couple months. I think you and Mr. Troutman, you all do a lot for this town. You put a lot of work in, a lot of stuff that I've been reading over the past couple months that I've been here. Things seem to add up right, and I'm with you on treating everyone fair. This person's gonna do it, this person should do it as well too. I think you're figuring that out really well.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that back to us. Thanks for all your research. Absolutely. So I guess, Mike, you just need our grace then, right? All right. Council, does anybody have any issues with that fee schedule? Okay, you've got it. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, and that brings us, this section's only going to be an hour and a half long. Miscellaneous business and communications from the town manager. Since you've had a couple of days to get...
Yeah, well, I just said I appreciate the grace you just gave me.
Do you have anything you'd like to share with us so far, or anything coming down the line that we need to know?
Well, just to say that I'm amazed at how much we do for a community this size. If you've traveled, and I've traveled, I've seen a lot of stuff that makes you go wow, and a lot of stuff that makes you scratch your head. I spent a couple hours with Mike the other day driving around, and it's just amazing how much we do relative to our size. And so and anybody that doesn't think Abington's an awesome place needs to travel more, because it really is. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate that, and again, well,
Thanks.
yeah,
We need to come up with a code for all the mics at what,
I know.
too many mics.
There are a lot of mics now. Yeah, it's true. A lot of head jerking when I said Mike on there. I didn't think of that. Mr. Cochran then.
No, Mike.
All right. Council, that brings us to council member reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I just want to thank our staff.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, it seemed like I was asking tons of questions and having to do research and dig a lot. But with these guys, and like I told Mariana one time, I'm disappointed that I don't get to ask questions in the meeting.
She covers it all.
She covers it all. Well, they all do.
I know,
And
right?
so,
You're going to have to back off a little bit so we can think of some questions to
And
ask.
you've done so, all of you have done so much with less, and it shows. I mean,
Yes, it
it's you're doing a great job, so thank you. And you'll recognize that soon too.
Yeah, yeah. And Mike's right. I want to, reflect what he's saying. It's the people that makes the difference, honestly. I know, Mariana, sometimes you have to delve out negative comments to certain citizens along the way, and I can honestly say I haven't had a single person complain about the way you've handled yourself. So kudos, yeah, absolutely. Council, any other reports? I think Amanda's got something she wants to share about the boys track team.
Oh, yes, we have to honor them again.
Yeah.
They achieved, on June the 4th, they won the Triple Crown in track, which has never been done in the state of Virginia, anybody west of Charlottesville. So they won cross-country state 3A championship, they won the indoor state 3A championship, and then they won the outdoor state 3A championship. And then we had a relay state champion, again at outdoor. I'm a little biased, I had a member of that relay team. And then 1600 state, or the 3200, no, the 1600. Dylan won the 1600 state champion. So we had we did a team state championship and an individual state championship as well. So for the boys team, and the girls team performed quite well. Or they had some individual.
Absolutely. Some
Yeah.
state runner-ups. and
Yeah, we had a lot of
thirds and
all-state
fourths, yeah.
athletes.
Mhm,
They did
absolutely.
very, very well. So that is an impressive feat
Yeah,
for kids.
absolutely.
And then Patrick Henry High School also won the state track championship in, are they 2A or 1A?
One.
One,
1A.
yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, they
And
had a
tennis
great
went to
team.
the semifinals, in
Baseball.
singles, doubles, baseball went to the state semifinals. We had a
They were
big
in the
week a couple
finals.
weeks ago.
Yeah,
They
baseball
went to
were
the
in the finals, yeah.
They were the runner,
Yeah, they were
is what I meant,
runner-up.
yeah. Yeah, and then the state, our boys doubles team were the state runner-up,
Mhm.
yes.
And then we had an individual runner-up on the girls' team. I mean, it's just too many to list, but really, athletics in Abingdon are just,
Mhm.
they're as hot as this room is right now. Kim usually keeps it pretty cool in here. I think the remote's gone, I don't know.
We're gonna treat all those boys in here again before they go to college.
That's it, yeah.
So
We'll have-
maybe at the next, maybe at
That's
the
The July.
July
Yeah,
meeting,
that's
because
it.
they'll all be
So-
gone, well, not all of them, or we're only losing a couple, but several members of that team will be
Sure.
gone. I think one's running at the University of Tennessee, one's running at Gardner-Webb, one's running at ETSU.
The list goes on.
I don't know about the rest, but they're all quite
That's it.
accomplished.
Very, very exciting times, yeah. Any other reports, council? That one's going to be hard to follow up. All right. That brings us to closed session, of which we don't have one today, do we? Okay. And then the moment you've all been waiting for, we're adjourned.
That was short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Not a record, but still short and sweet.
There's a lot of.
Thank you all for coming. We're very excited. Thank you all.
Yeah.
We're very, very excited.
Let me say something.
And you all, seriously, if you need anything, just reach out.
They gotta,